Welcome to Gatecrash, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. My name is Dan. My pronouns are he, him. And today I am joined by someone I have been looking forward to chatting with for a very long time. I am sitting here with the author of the new queer horror from Tour Nightfire, Camp Damascus, Chuck Tingle. How are you?
I am doing just great. I love the mission of this podcast. I have written many stories about my feelings about gatekeeping, and I think that most of what I do also is taking things that buckaroos might find easy to find irony in or mock or can barely believe are sincere, and to say no, it's okay to just be sincere about your own unique way, no matter how unusual it may be. And I don't know if buckaroos are listening to or watching this, but just looking at old Chuck, I definitely have a unique way. I'm currently wearing a large pink bag on my head, and everything about what I do is sincere. So if you're trotting along and you're having problems thinking, "Gosh, do I need to put on this sheen of irony?" It's okay, bud, to just let it down and be yourself.
I I'm very thankful for people like you. Like I follow your Twitter pretty closely because I love you put a lot of sincere messages out and things like that. And I do want to get into that because I do find a lot of your work is very sincere and you wear it on your sleeve. But I am a hard-hitting journalist, and all of my
Yes.
interviews open up with a tough question. So I really hope you're ready for this. What's your favorite sandwich?
Oh, dang. Oh, that's a good one. Well, I'm going to give a specific sandwich, not a kind, because I've been ordering it a lot. I was born in city name of Home of Truth, then was in Billings for a long time. I am now in the city of Devils, also known as Los Angeles on this timeline. And there is a sandwich shop called Wax Paper, and all of their sandwiches are named after I don't know if it's just radio hosts or specifically NPR hosts, but the Ira glass at Wax Paper is has been my order lately. Oh my gosh, very good vegetarian sandwich um, with a very strong focus on a good cheddar, not like a standard cheddar, but like a aged cheddar to where you're like, oh wow, that's kind of beyond what I normally think. It's got that, it's got sprouts, avocado, some kind of pickled onions, I think. Very good bread. So as a vegetarian buckaroo, my options for sandwiches can be limited, but that's the one I've been enjoying lately.
That sounds so. Ira Glass has one of the best voices, maybe on
Oh
earth.
my gosh.
Oh,
Yes.
so soothe. But that sandwich sounds awesome.
It's
Um,
wonderful. And that's I've kind of noticed, maybe this is a Los Angeles thing, and I'm still kind of getting used to my trot here, but a lot of vegetarian sandwich options will just, instead of a sort of like a meat replacement, instead of that, they just kind of get a really very good cheese and pile it on, and then a bunch of other vegetables. There is a restaurant called All Time here as well that has a similar sandwich where it's more cheese based. Now that being said, if I had the willpower, and maybe someday I would be a vegan buckaroo. But I have not been able to eliminate the cheese. So right now it is vegetarian.
oh yeah, I'm in Philadelphia, so I went to a vegan horror restaurant on Saturday called Monster Vegan,
Wow.
and I had a General So sandwich, and it was I can't remember what they used instead of meat, but it was unbelievable. So if you're ever in Philly, let me know
I
and we'll
like,
go.
wow. Well, I like the theme of that for sure.
Yeah,
That's really neat.
we're seeing Jaws there. So they like turn the back room into a little movie theater, and it's wild. Philadelphia's got some wild things, but Yeah, horror themed
Oh,
vegan
this is
restaurant
so neat.
is new. So
Wow.
you have been writing a lot of erotic books for a long time, and
Yes.
seems to be like the first outing into full horror. I got to read the book. We talked a little bit beforehand. It is unbelievable, and I assume on this press tour, a lot of people are asking you what your horror origins are and things like that. But I'm way more interested in what horror sequence or scene from any book, movie, anything has stuck with you the longest.
Oh, that that's I have two. I remember very strongly, and we're already going to get controversial. I'm a big fan of Night of the Living Dead, and here's the controversy. I like the remake from the 80s
Mhm.
better than the old black and white one. And I don't know. I think most would disagree. I mean, but I think George Romero also did I think he did both. Maybe I don't know. I don't have Google in front of me, but anyway, I really like that. And I remember as a young buckaroo, seeing a scene where they're trying to board up the doors, and then there's this zombie there, and he opens his arms wide. I think they just shoot him in. I don't know why, but that arms open zombie always sticks with me. I really, I really enjoyed that movie. I remember that was one of the first horror movies that I really gravitated to.
Mhm.
And then for some reason, I just remember an episode of the X Files called Our Town, about a town full of cannibals, and how everyone in the town is eating people. So they start to have mad cow disease, I think, because you can get that from cannibalism and eating brains, I think. And there is a scene where someone's working at a chicken factory, and all the chickens are going by, and then a severed head goes by because they're hallucinating it. Um, that I don't know why when you ask that question, that's a great question because there are so many. But I think as far as the ones that I think have just these strange, visceral images that stick in your head forever in the genre, that's a fascinating thing. I wonder why these certain ones just stay around. I will also say that when I write, um, uh, most of my influences is film. Well, you just finished Camp Damascus, but the way that I pace things, I don't know if you notice this when reading, but I do pace it like you're watching a film. And I also try to create set pieces like a film. Uh, I don't know. I think those images very specifically are kind of part of what I do.
I was very curious because you're pacing. I love the way you break up chapters. And it's not even just breaking up chapters. You have like these, I don't know what you would call them, like page breaks where it'll break the text into a new scene.
Yes, yes.
How do you decide when you're going to do one of those versus starting a new chapter? Because I was very curious about that when I was reading.
Well, I think that so when I plot things, I do plot using like I said, film plotting, not novel plotting. I think the big difference, honestly, is that when you have a story, if you're plotting for a film, the time is very specific, and there's kind of these rules that are very ingrained. And old Chuck, I do love a set of rules. I like to defy them sometimes, but I'm because of my autistic way, I'm very systematic in things. So I very much like the film rules and just kind of the pacing and the acts. With a novel, I think you can do that, but there is so much more room to just kind of zoom off on tangents, and that's very freeing too. But it's my own personal taste to just kind of I think that out of respect for the reader, I always think if you're reading this, I need to really trim it down and give you exactly what I should. I just don't want to then drag people around. I really want to respect the time of the reader. And so a lot of this, where is the page break and where is the scene break and where is the chapter break? I think honestly, it's mostly around let's say 4 or 5 thousand words for me per chapter. And if one of those happens, it can be where is a suspenseful uh, scene going, but also when I'm planning, it's where is the scene break like in a film, or when is the break between Act One and Act Two, or Act Two and Act Three? These are kind of natural in film, so they kind of inform where the chapters are in my novel writing.
I love that. I the all of it, the set pieces is very interesting because I'm curious how you developed the camp itself. Um, I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but we don't see a ton of the camp. So I'm curious how that all came, how you approached all of that.
Oh yes. Well, there's two things. I mean, first you have the. I think you mentioned Jaws earlier. The Jaws or the alien uh, uh, idea of limit your monster.
The monster.
Limit. Save it for the end. Let it creep in the background. So I think there's part of that mentality is if you want to create dread, and you're dealing with these memories. That's one way. Other thing is that I write in first person present. So if you want a mystery to happen, you do have to reveal this information to the character in a very specific way because you're only seeing Rose's point of view. But even more specific to your question of kind of designing what the camp was and what the church was, I really wanted to make sure that I think it would have been very easy to reveal that Kingdom of the Pine, who run Camp Damascus, are just this cult with all kinds of out there ideas and really crazy things and wild beliefs. And ultimately, where the book goes is that their beliefs are not all that unusual. In fact, they're pretty standard. They're what real people actually believe and talk about and do. And that to me is a little harder to accomplish in this kind of narrative, but way more satisfying because there's a nuance to it. I would compare that, to use another film comparison. The reason I think the movie Get Out is so effective and so good is because the family is a liberal family. They are not. They could have been very conservative, outwardly racist family. But when he goes to the family and Get Out, they say, "Oh, if I could have voted for Obama again, I would have." Because there's just so much more nuance and subtlety there if you treat the other side not necessarily as a caricature, but you're showing maybe the more intricate version of these beliefs and how they can be harmful.
That is so the way you handle faith in the story is very interesting because you don't later in the story it's painted in such an interesting light of understanding. And I'm really excited for people to get into that. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't ask questions about that here, but one thing that has stuck with me, this is a two-parter. The way you describe the family, Rose's family specifically, her mother and father, how did you build this family when you
Oh
started
yes.
working the story? Because the way you describe the father is like that platonic ideal of what a strong.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
There's an archetype, and I will say, I like to, well, gosh, there's a bunch of ways to answer this. To go back, originally this is technically not my first horror novel. It was my first traditionally published. I did a book called Straight. That's a novella about a year ago. Listeners can go check that out. It is a sort of a queer zombie situation, and there's a family in that also kind of represents the nuclear family and the different aspects of, especially in America, the mythology behind that. And I kind of did a little of that. And then when I was reading Rose's family, I thought, okay, I kind of touched on this in straight. Um, I want to really just make this a sort of ideal so that when you reveal the changes, they go away and you kind of realize that it's not an ideal after all. It is kind of an idea that's sold to us through decades of mythology. So Rose's father is very much modeled after idea of Clark Kent or Superman, which is kind of touched on. And then Rose's mother also, just they are all, blonde haired, blue eyed, very what I would say what a politician would very wrongly uh, call quote real Americans in a campaign ad. And so I thought it was kind of interesting to start it there, and also like I was saying with the religion thing, even if they're starting there, all of those people still have humanity. So you craft these characters that are this way, and then you say, okay, where is the existence in this? What is their real life like when they are not saying these things? They're still having dinner with each other. They are still talking about similar issues. They just kind of have their own take on them. So yeah, I think it was definitely that sort of fake idealized family, but also to find places that they would still have humanity.
So the second part of that you got into is the Superman comparison.
Oh
We
yes.
we started as a DC podcast years ago, and then we became what we are now. But I took pictures of it on my phone as I was reading because I thought it was one of the funniest lines, that Jesus Christ is the only real superhero. Do you think Jesus Christ would wear a cape, or would he have like a special suit, or is he just going straight?
Wow. Well, I mean, the actual historical accounts of the man who walked around like that are fascinating. Mostly, I think, because Jesus is the most popular one that we know today, but there were a bunch of other buckaroos walking around doing miracles, saying, "Follow me," and I am the Son of God, and all that. It's interesting to think about what he would. Gosh, what that was like. I do read about this sometimes, and there's been some interesting things I was reading about how the man Jesus himself walking around actually wasn't all that popular, and that Paul, I think it was Paul, decades afterwards, I think even after Jesus' death, was going around saying, "Hey guys, remember these miracles? You guys remember all that?" And kind of he was the one leading the charge. So maybe it would be Paul wearing the cape, extending the myth, because I really think ultimately you can say whatever you want about these figures through history or religion, but where the power comes from is who's the one writing the myth, who's the one making the story go on. If you're just standing there, you're just a buckaroo. But if someone comes by 100 years later and gathers everyone up and says, "Hey, remember that buckaroo standing there? You remember when he flew around and saved Metropolis?" And everyone goes, "Oh, okay, I guess he did. I don't remember that." So it is. I think the power of myth is really the superpower on display in this book. So I guess Superman's an apt comparison.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. I can't wait for you to write Superman one day.
Oh
So
wow, I would love I think it'd be kind of fun to do I'm a big graphic novel fan, so I think doing some kind of a superhero story, if somebody would let Chuck do a couple of just a little graphic novel, maybe one of those like six or seven issue ones. Oh dang, that would be a real treat.
good to know. I'll talk to some people. So
Yes.
Rose, um, how did you develop her as a character? Because she's, as a point of view character, like you fall in love with her, and what she's going through and her journey. How did you develop her?
Well, in many ways, I Rose, at least in the, I think a lot of buckaroos are curious because I talk a lot about being on the autism spectrum, and because I hide my way, and because lots of buds don't even know anything about autism and the different ways that it can manifest, they tend to think, well, how much masking do you do? What are you like when you're not wearing the dang pink bag? All these other things, and I would say that Rose, in the way that her autism manifests and her thought process is exactly like my own. Um, there is a focus on planning and logic, and both facts and curiosity about facts that is directly related to Chuck. There is her finger taps are at my actual stim for my spectrum way. So there is a lot in that respect. And then I think the other side is, I my whole life I've been very, I would say, skeptical of things. I never really had to personally grow out of a faith. I've been surrounded by people in very close to certain buckaroos who have had to go through that journey, but I didn't myself. So I think that really the second part of Rose is that sort of idealized Americana as a starting point, and then giving that as much humanity as possible. And I think probably relating on the autism way, it was my angle to do that, to say, well, this person is very different from me, but we are the same in certain ways. So yeah, I always try to find that way to dive in and figure out, well, what is the real, how can we treat this like a real person, even if their trappings are kind of stylized, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it was great representation, because as I was reading the tapping and the stimming with the numbers, I was like, this reads like that, but I don't ever want to assume. And then she outright says it in a very great moment.
Oh, thank you. I will say there was kind of a debate, both with me and other buckaroos behind the scenes, of whether or not to actually say in the text that Rose is autistic. But as someone who, whenever I see autistic characters and they say that in media, especially when I was a young buckaroo, that meant so much to me. So there was a certain subtlety that some might appreciate if I never said it, but I just thought, you know what? I always wished when I was younger that they would just say, this is how I am. So I really wanted that to just be there in the text. And I also thought about old scoundrel J.K. Rowling talking about Dumbledore saying, oh, well, the whole time he was gay. And I just think to myself, I don't know, maybe you just should have mentioned that once in the story. So I just thought, yeah, let's just say it, and I'm very happy with that decision.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
I'm very glad as well, just because, as you said, like, some people want to see themselves on the page or on the screen, and getting that acknowledgement means a lot to a lot of people.
Yes.
Now, horror in general deals often with the themes of identity, including this text. Why do you think identity and horror go so much hand in hand?
Oh, dang. Well, horror, I guess my feelings about the genre, I've talked about this a few times, but I think it's really kind of just the way that I see it. I've said kind of grueling horror and cathartic horror, but those can be kind of those are very loose terms. Some might find catharsis through the gruelingness of horror, but basically, to me, it is, you have this characters that you identify with, and the grueling horror is when you just really put them through the ringer, and then and it's a bad ending. And that version of it, I think, is really important to some people because while some might call this a celebration of death, I think it's a celebration of life because you have this character who is not you, and when the book closes or the movie ends, their fate is not your own, and you could experience this just like a very spicy plate of spaghetti or a big scary roller coaster ride, and you're fine. But still, I would say the experience of that is um, unpleasant on purpose. That is the point of the genre. You are supposed to kind of have this unpleasant, visceral feeling. The cathartic horror is the other half of that coin, which is you go into it, characters in trouble, and then around either the midpoint or Act Three, the lead character turns the tables, and all this feeling of tension that you have felt, you get to release as they go and they turn the tables and stab Michael Myers or any of these other things, and they come out on top using their wit and their strategy, and that feels very good in a sort of cathartic kind of revenge way. And I think horror as a genre is not knowing which side you're going to get. It is a mystery game where you go and you say, is this going to be this grueling thing, or is this going to be the catharsis that I've been yearning for? And equally important, but it's just kind of the interplay of which one is it going to be. And I do think that those are very visceral bodily reactions. I also think that horror, in a sense, because of what I just described, is about violating sensibilities, violating social norms. And sometimes that means your expectation. Like I said, you are violating the expectation that there's going to be a happy ending. But also, you can violate the body. We see a healthy body, whatever that heckin' means. But you have that ideal in our head as a human, and then you take it and it is destroyed, whether that is by being stabbed by a slasher or infected by an alien that pops out of your chest or disease or anything. So horror is all about the threat of a violation of the body, I think. So it is just a very visceral, honest and raw and bodily genre that I think that's why it is so powerful.
Yeah, I fully agree. And so there is another thing. This book isn't overtly sexual or anything like that, but I think sexuality and horror have a lot of intersection as well, which you have explored before. Do you think that's a part of the whole idea of catharsis and things like that? Or do you think there's another more like primal reason there is so much sexuality
Oh
with
no,
horror?
you are right. You are right. I think it is. I call it the maligned trinity of genre, which is horror, um, comedy, and either erotica or romance. All genres looked down their noses. You know, everyone says snooty, says those aren't intellectual things.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because unlike typical stories, they are striving for a reaction of the body. Comedy, laughter, horror, fear, or a scream, even, and then erotica and romance, arousal. So I think that because these are bodily reactions, they are looked down on. And from my perspective, that is where I like to explore and play. I think that that's what's exciting because I instead of kind of looking down at those as lesser, lower class, my point of view is actually that they are very honest and that you can really mine so much heart and drama and also social commentary when you harness the power of those bodily reactions and weave it with some commentary that would sometimes be seen as more intellectual, although I just think it's all kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I love the looking down idea because like there's the sincerity thing. There's always worth
Yes.
and everything has worth to every person.
Yes. Well,
Um,
comics, you mentioned
mhm,
superheroes.
mhm,
The same way. And look at how not seriously superheroes have been taken for so long. this very visceral story, these archetypes that now have been harnessed by Marvel Studios into, one of the biggest things of all time. And you talk to someone who knows comic books, I'm sure you feel this when you see that and you think, well, obviously everyone resonates with these. We've been saying this the whole time. No one ever took it serious.
Yeah. And it is very refreshing now that comics are being taken seriously, because even outside of the cape stuff, there are tons of horror books. There's that deals with everything. So every medium, if you give it its chance, has worth. Like you can't
You
can't discredit
I have a huge graphic novel shelf, and very few. Although I do enjoy some superhero stories, I would say that's about 5% of it. And I would say another 5% is sort of like romance and erotica things, and then 90% of it is horror comics. I just the giant shelf of horror comics.
Do you have any favorites? Or do you have any, not favorites, but are there any that like you go back to?
Junji Ito is always my number one. Has been for decades. So I guess if I was to recommend, to anyone, they say, "Oh, I want to read a good horror comic," really like Uzumaki, and Goyo was after that. So he is kind of the touchstone. But I will just then read everything. Let's see. I really enjoyed Nailbiter. I don't know if others have read that, and Black Hole by Charles Burns. Of course, that's definitely a classic. And what did I read? I recently read Plunge by Joe Hill. Really, really good. But I have endless shelves of these horror comics. That's my number one. Yes,
I love that. I just had something to say, but I forgot what it was. Oh, Junji Ito. Have you read his book about the cats? His cats?
I haven't yet. I know that it is not horror, so I stare at it and I think, I don't know if I enjoy this. I like all his other work. But do you recommend it?
So again, with the sincerity thing, it is Junji Ito's very visceral, beautiful art, talking about a very mundane thing of learning to love cats and like having them come into his life. It is, I love Junji's, like I love all of their work, but this is my favorite because it's, you see this person who like, is like doing the spirals and stuff like that, but then you see this human and a relationship that you didn't expect. It is, there's a special edition out now which has a couple of chapters that appeared later, I think in not Shonen Jump, but one of the magazines. I recommend it to everyone just because it's it's a very different take of.
I'm gonna go order it right after this.
Yeah, it is,
because that sounds great. Yes, I mean, I am such a fan that so after my deal with Nightfire is for two. They're putting out two novels. After Camp Damascus, the next book is called Bury Your Gaze, and there's a character in it that I love. One of my favorite characters I've ever written, named Tara Ito, that is named after. That's a little tribute of mine. That's how much of a fan I am.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think you'll love the cat one. I just can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's actually in my bedside because I didn't have cats before. My partner is huge on cats and we got cats and now they're my best friends. So it's I get it. It's like one of those, like you connect. Now, I've had one of your your recent tweets, I think it was a couple weeks ago, bookmarked, and I've just looked at it a couple times in the past week or so, just because I have been going through these feelings. And you wrote, sometimes it feels like things we don't do matter. If there's something I am certain of, they matter not just a little, they matter a lot. You matter a lot. What I'm trying to think how to phrase this. What do you want people to take away from your work? Like what lessons do you hope people find from the art you put into the world?
Oh, yes. Well, there's a few touchstones without going on for
Mhm.
two whole hours, just me rambling about what I'm trying to accomplish here. I think that at the very beginning, the genesis of what I was writing, and also I would write Tinglers anyway. I love, I really like the art that I make. I'm very proud of it, and I understand that it is strange, but I just enjoy doing it. So I think I will do this anyway. But initially, a sort of a thought about Tinglers as a whole, and what am I trying to say by writing these stories about all these different strange, or I say strange in quotes because they're not really that strange at all, but unexpected pairings across different timelines and sexualities and dinosaurs, big feet, and living objects, and all that. The whole point of all that was to say, a long time ago, conservatives would argue we can't allow gay marriage because if you let two men marry each other, what's next? Three men, or a man in their automobile, or any of these other ways. And I always thought, as they would just throw that out as an assumption that everyone's going to agree with them. And I always thought, what's wrong with that? What would ever be a problem with buckaroos expressing their sexualities in these unique, joyful, exciting ways? Marry whoever the heck you want, whether it's marry 12 big feet, it doesn't matter. And you kind of see that thrown out from those on the deep internet,
Yeah.
poisoned by irony, um, as some sort of a gotcha. And it never was to me. I sincerely think that you should be allowed to do that. I think that a world where everyone was marrying and having sex with a handsome Bigfoot pilot and a unicorn lawyer would be a joyful, fun, exciting place. And so, as a whole, the point of Tinglers is to say, yeah, if that happened and everyone was allowed to do whatever they wanted, and to love each other, then it would be great. So that is my first answer to kind of the philosophy of the work. And the second, I won't ramble too long, but to go back to the tweet, um, that specifically, I have come at this from such a unique place, and it has resonated with others. So I think it's easy to see my uniqueness because I literally wear it over
Mhm.
my face. Um, but everyone is spectacularly unique. Just existing here took thousands and thousands, millions, billions of tiny events for anyone to even be born. And now that we're here, I think it's very easy to forget that, to forget the astronomical odds that it took for you to even exist in the first place. And not only that, that there is only one of you, and that alone is spectacular. How much power is in that? Moving forward, all the versions of reality, every crossing timeline, now that we've beaten the odds to be here, we can affect all those as well and create a world with more love in it just by going and then paying someone's groceries when they are $5 short, or just calling a friend to say that, hey, bud, how are you doing? We can affect entire universes just by doing that. And I think it's pretty easy to forget that.
Wow. Yeah. That 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 was really special to hear. Like that, I'm kind of speechless because like it's so nice to think that we can be the change that we want to see, and that can ripple across so much. So
Yes.
thank you for thanks for dropping that. That was
Oh, of course. It's so easy to forget. I mean, even
mhm.
I come out here preaching this stuff, and I forget it too. We are all human beings, but with a little bit of perspective, you can kind of just start to remember these things and think, wow, I really am unique. It's a silly thing to think about, but you see time travel movies where everyone says, oh, if you think back to the future, saying, "Oh, this big change is going to erase you from existence." What buckaroos don't really realize is that if parents had a different sex position, we would not even exist. We would be a different person. It's not even a matter of, oh, I never went on this trip to Alaska and met my soulmate or whatever big broad story. It's literally, oh, are we gonna have our date night on are we gonna have our dinner reservation at 7 or 7:01? That entirely creates an entirely new set of people branching out forever. That is the power that we have with every single moment, and we can use that to leave this timeline a little better than when we got here.
That's I love that. Chuck, thank you so much for being here. Where can people find your work?
Oh, dang it. Well, I would usually say Twitter, but it is going down in flames and in a complete, utter cesspool. So I would say looking up Chuck Tingle. I'm on pretty much every social media way. If you still use Twitter, I'll be there a little bit longer, probably. But way of Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky or dang TikTok, all those ways, I'm very much enjoying Tumblr, actually. And so I'm around. And then Camp Damascus, as my first traditionally published horror novel, is going to be in any dang store that you have. You can request it at your library. It is widely distributed, which is why I did this in the first place. Signed a traditional deal so that you could go to your local bookstore and support my art and my trot, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm not sure when this airs, but you know, pre-orders, very big deal in book publishing. So if you are interested, then pre-ordering Camp Damascus would help a lot.
Yes, please pre-order all your books, just because again it makes a big difference. But you
and really, I think buckaroos are jaded by video game pre-orders. Yep. And they don't understand that book pre-orders is a very different thing. You really gotta pre-order your books to support authors.
Yeah, it's like all like comics too, like both books and comics you need to pre-order, because it's a printed thing. It's not like pre-orders for video games, like they're gonna make 1 million copies of the disc anyway, so like
yes.
Yeah, thank you. You can find us at Gatecrashers Pod for all of our reviews, analysis, interviews, and episodes as well. Thank you.